Namaskar. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us here. Bobji, thank you very much for coming here and speaking so um, positively and understanding the pain and agony and the grief of our brothers and sisters. Thank you very much. It was 3 years ago, I think in 2019, when we came here. Amish had to go to Africa, I think, yeah. And I remember when I came here, by that time we were interviewing, we knew that we were going to make a film, but we had no clue what kind of a film we were going to make. And so here exactly behind this curtain, when I was coming to speak up, I had made some notes. One officer from Nehru Center told me that, sir, please, nothing political. Absolutely nothing political. And I said, Kashmir and not political, how is it possible? He said, sir, I don't know, it's about my job, but nothing political. I remember, Shafalika ji, aapko yaad hoga, I came here, I said, okay, today we will not discuss politics at all. And yet we will discuss Kashmir. And for next 40 minutes to 1 hour, I spoke about the culture and literature and the great heritage, spiritual heritage of Kashmir. And while I was talking, you know, I'm gifted with something, and my gift is, as I talk, a lot of stories start cooking up in my mind, you know, scenarios and scripts. So I can speak and think separately, you know, since childhood I've been like that. And that is the time I realized, I understood exactly what this film is going to be about. Because most of the generation which is born after 1980, and which is the maximum population of India, the young people, whether they are Kashmiri Muslims or Hindus, more or less people believed that Kashmir has been a Muslim land. And just to give you an example, since the theme is India after the Kashmir files, even before we started filming, one of the biggest OTT platforms in the world, their executives, top executives, were chasing me to give this film to them. And when they thought a film called The Kashmir Files obviously has to be about something like why somebody becomes a terrorist. They thought the film is about the oppression and how Indian state and Indian army have been persecuting Muslim population, and that's why people become terrorists. Because it's a template narrative. It's a template. Everybody has been given to believe that people become terrorists because they are oppressed by the state or the society or whatever. But when we did our research, we picked up all the dreaded terrorists, and in the context of Kashmir especially, we realized none of them was oppressed. Osama bin wasn't oppressed. Afzal Guru wasn't oppressed. In fact, most of them came from very good families. I believe Osama was a kind of a prince. He came from a princely film. Burhan Wani wasn't oppressed. So most of these terrorists were never oppressed. But then in cinema and in popular literature, we have always presented them as oppressed people. But if you look at it purely from humanitarian point of view, you will see Dalits, the scheduled castes in India, they have been oppressed for hundreds of years, but they have not picked up guns. Women are oppressed all over the world, they don't pick up guns. Poor people are oppressed all over the world, they don't pick up guns. Even the slaves, the blacks, they did not pick up guns. And who would know better than you that India was enslaved for hundreds of years by Britain? We did not pick up guns. So this entire narrative about picking up guns because you're oppressed was created by movies, popular literature, and especially in Indian context by Bollywood. And that's because I have always said this. Lot of you, if you hear my speeches, you would know. I always say it, but I'll keep repeating it thousands of times until everybody understands what I'm trying to say. That some of the most popular, one of the biggest blockbusters of all times on Kashmir, produced by Bollywood and Tollywood or whatever you want to call, but primarily Indian film industry, and some of the topmost stars for acting in it, and some of the greatest of the intellectual directors, some of the finest directors whose intentions I do not doubt at all, even including people like Mani Ratnam, a great patriot. Even when he ended up making a film on Kashmir, they fell prey to the narrative that, basically is the Kashmiri Muslim population which has been oppressed, and Indian state has been oppressing them, and that's why they become terrorists. And I realize the main reason is because people, whenever we think about Kashmir, we know Kashmir only through political eye. We see Kashmir, what media has told us. Nobody goes to Kashmir. If you go there, you go to Gulmarg and Pahalgam and Dal Lake and you come back. So you never get to know Kashmir. Nobody takes you to all those abandoned and burnt and broken houses of Kashmiri Hindus. So therefore people don't know what Kashmir is all about. So this connection of India with Kashmir, or the Hindu knowledge system with Kashmir, suddenly there was one block which was missing, one building block which was missing. Entire generation has grown up without knowing about it. Just to give you an example, Kashmir has been the most diverse place in the entire Indian subcontinent. I just got to know, Amish, you would be surprised to know, I got to know from one of the topmost scholars from Banaras, from Kashi. He told me that the tradition used to be in Gurukuls that whenever you graduated and you needed to go, you would take 3 steps towards Kashmir. So that is the connection of Kashmir. Shankaracharya from Kerala went to Kashmir. Buddhists went to Kashmir. Jains went to Kashmir. All these people, because that was the apex center of Hindu knowledge, Hindu philosophy especially, not religion so much. It became a spiritual center, kind of a spiritual center. But then after independence, our academicians and our public speakers and media and everybody created a narrative in a way as if Kashmir was never a part of India. And everybody started talking about Kashmir, 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 as if it was some distant cousin, who you don't even care about. Just to give you an idea, this executive, like I was talking about, this is one of the biggest OTT platforms. She told me that, sorry, we cannot, finally when she got to know what the film was all about, she said, we cannot take this film. And India, after the Kashmir files, recently she met me because now she has jumped the job and she's joined somewhere else, and she came to my office. Pallavi was also there. And she said, before this film, I didn't even know that Kashmir was ever a Hindu land. And she must be getting, in lakhs, I don't know how many pounds, I can't, like in hundreds of thousands, she's one of the richest executives, with top executives. And these are the people, like Bob was telling me, these are the people who are running the narrative industry in the world. She has no clue. She's a Indian girl. On top of that, I'm not trying to sound casteist, but she's a Brahmin girl, because we are talking about Kashmiri Pandits. So at least you have some kind of understanding about your own caste system. And she had no clue. And she's influencing millions and millions of young minds. It's her decision which basically decides what your child is going to learn. All these people refused to take this film, and today they are running after us that please give us a bit of it. What I'm trying to tell you is that nobody tried to do this cultural connection which was missing. Even people who wrote books on Kashmir, even Kashmiri Pandits, they also failed to establish why Kashmir is so important to India and why India without Kashmir is not India. So, standing exactly here like I am talking right now with you, I realized that it's very important to do that connect. And to do that connect, we used our art. And we said a region, and this is very important, that the region which actually came with the concept of oneness, this entire concept of oneness, non-duality which you see, whether Shankaracharya or Shaivism, Kashmiri Shaivism, came from Kashmir. And there was a great Indian sage, Maharshi Ramanna. Somebody asked him how to treat others. He said, there are no others. This is our DNA. This is our DNA. Because we branched into so many disciplines, philosophy, art, aesthetics, literature, science, human body, and we did not invade anybody. We did not conquer anybody. We had no desire to go outside. We were very busy understanding ourselves, going internal. And which is why you see there's a difference. And I'm not saying anything is inferior or superior. There are different kinds of methods of doing the same thing. That's why we came out with this whole concept of Anekantvad, which finally Jainism picked up and they synthesized it and it became like a specialized branch, which simply means that there are millions and millions, 7.5 billion people live on this earth. There are 7.5 billion ways to reach the truth. But negating somebody else's way, that is violence. Violence did not mean at that time not killing somebody. It's later on when Mahavir and then other gurus and finally Gandhi made it popular. But violence simply meant negating or denying your truth. So whenever somebody says, this is the only truth, as an Indian, I feel that person is violent. What is Hindu philosophy? Who am I? When I say I'm a Hindu, does it mean I'm a religious person going to temples and ringing bells and praying to some god? No. When I say I'm a Hindu, it simply means I am seeking answers to millions of questions which concern a human life. And which is why, see, Hinduism begins with Vedas. Entire Hindu philosophy begins with Vedas. In Vedas, the first god, I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little embarrassed talking about it because Amish is here who's a scholar in this subject. But still, with my limited knowledge, what I have understood is that one of the earliest gods we find in Vedas is Prajapati. Right? Then Prajapati became Brahma and many other dimensions it took. So Prajapati, and the first thing Prajapati, the first god of Hindu system, first thing he says is, who am I? Where else in the world you will find a god saying, who am I? In fact, gods always say, I know exactly who I am, I know who you are, and I know what exactly you should be doing. So you have to understand this is a different system altogether which the world cannot understand. We are like an open source faith system, whereas everybody else is a closed source faith system. I'm not saying what is better and what is not. I'm not comparing, but I'm just trying to put them in perspective. The entire Hindu philosophy and faith system is an open source coding. People who are in IT will understand it, right? Which means, okay, today I feel, no, it needs an upgrade. Okay, let's do an upgrade. You need to refine this coding, let's do that. Okay, we are going wrong here, let's correct it. Okay, you don't like Prajapati, let's make Brahma. If you don't like Brahma, let's create Ganesh. If you don't like this, let's create thousands of gods. Let's create let's create as many people, everybody can have their own gods, and which is true. In one family in India, and it's a commonplace, it's not something exceptional, it's a commonplace. In one family, one brother goes, keeps fasting for Shiva, one keeps for Ganesha, mother keeps it for somebody else. In one family, you have 5, 6 different gods, everybody has different rituals, they are doing different things, and still they are one family. So this millions and millions, you don't want to believe in God, no problems. If you want to understand Hinduism, I say it's like a cot, or a chair on 4 legs. And so this chair, if it's Hinduism, then one is Buddhism, one is Jainism, one is Sikhism, and the fourth one is atheism. And we have a God for that also. You want to abuse your gods, you abuse your gods. You want to criticize them, you criticize them. Because God here is not some entity which is somewhere in heaven and hell keeping a ledger of your good deeds and bad deeds. Because the first mantra from where the entire Hindu philosophy begins is Tattvamasi, which means you are that, you are God. The entire Hindu philosophy stands on one fundamental belief, that your power is equal to God's power. There is God within you, and which is why we are the only society which thought about different levels of consciousness. And we said there is a higher consciousness and there is a lower consciousness. Higher consciousness, people who have higher consciousness are devtas, people with lower consciousness are asur, which means rakshas, means evil people. And the only purpose of human life is to move from this consciousness to that consciousness. And that's what makes us different from animals. So lower consciousness people, they think like a tribe. They think everybody else is evil. Who doesn't believe in me, he's an evil. And therefore we must go and kill those people. And what do people with higher consciousness, devtas? They say there is diversity. There are millions and millions of ways to reach the truth. Let everybody flourish. Let everybody create. And which is why we created the greatest of the knowledge systems. Just to give you an example, what this higher consciousness does to you is that while the entire Western medical science, which is great, undoubtedly, was based on dissecting people, killing dead people, and understanding human beings, human bodies. But our medical system, the yoga and Ayurveda, was by observing living people. That's why we are different. We understand living people, their mind, we understand life. Never ever in our entire history we professed killing of life, destroying life. Because humanity is the ultimate principle, the ultimate truth of this entire cosmos. And today all the science is proving the same thing. Exactly, that the smallest of the particle has the same power which is equal to the power of the world, the energy of the world. So one small atom is equal to whatever you call the cosmos or universe or multiverses. That we discovered thousands of years ago. And terrorism is destroying this great knowledge system which believes in diversity. Kashmir, which was the most diverse places in the world, that's why people came to invade and loot it. Nobody goes to a poor, empty village to loot it. That's why they came there. But terrorism has destroyed this wonderful heaven on this earth. It wasn't heaven because there are beautiful mountains. Mountains are everywhere. Grass is everywhere. Skies are everywhere. New Zealand is the real heaven. If you go, you don't even see human beings. It's a beautiful place. It was heaven because the way people who live there think. You are not killing people. You are destroying an entire thinking system. You are destroying that thinking. And today, look at the unfortunate part of Kashmir. Pallavi perhaps forgot to tell you, but I must tell you, and I will repeat it again millions of times until people understand what we are trying to say. We are not against anybody. In fact, we are filled with empathy and sympathy for that little child whose story I'm going to tell you now. While we were shooting in Kashmir, there was a 5-minute break. Pallavi was sitting with a small girl. We needed some small girls. So she was a 5-6-year-old girl, very young, very young. And there was a break. It was around 1 o'clock. It was a namaz time. Namaz was blaring all over. The entire sky was filled with namaz, because in Kashmir, if you're there, it comes from hundreds of places, And she asked Pallavi that, are you going to do namaz? She said, no. She said, why? Pallavi said, because I'm a Hindu. So she said, so what? Namaz to sab karte hain. This young 6-year-old child had no idea that there are people with different faiths. This is violence. Destroying an entire young generation. This is real terrorism, which we are raising our voice against. Which is why when they asked us what this tour is going to be called, I said, let's call it Humanity Tour. Because everybody talks about humanity these days, it's fashionable. Everybody talks about human rights, but what is humanity? Nobody talks about that. You ask any child, any young child, what is humanity? He'll say being human. What is being human? I think being human is to give space to ideas, multiple ideas, thousands of ideas. Let everybody say, speak, believe, practice, whatever they want. Nobody in this world has a right to control anybody's mind, especially children's mind. So we talk about heaven and hell. In my mind, heaven is a place where you are free to think, free to imagine what else are human beings. The only thing which makes us different from animals is that we are gifted with, animals can also breathe, we can also breathe, but animals cannot imagine. They cannot think, we can imagine. And which is why we are creative. Every single thing you see around you is being created by human beings. That is because of our imagination. But if you are going to kill that imagination and confine it into a boundary, if you do this, you will go to heaven. If you don't do this, you'll go to hell. If you confine it like that, you are the most violent person. People with guns can be tackled with guns. But people who are destroying the entire thinking system, people who are destroying young minds' power to imagine in diverse ways, I think that is more dangerous than the terrorists with guns. So whatever I had to say, I have said in my film, but I thought it's very important for me to tell you that why this is Humanity Tour. Because this is the kind of humanity we believe in. And we will do it through our art. If anybody thinks we are just filmmakers, a lot of people talk about money because they don't understand the mathematics of film business. So people look at, oh, wow, it's done so much of business. So suddenly these people have made money. No, so don't be under that impression. In fact, filmmakers are always in debt. Shekhar Kapoor is not here. He would have told you. So even if you are the richest filmmaker, you are always in debt. But for us, it's a mission. It's a mission humanity. I want to spread. I had told you when I came here last time that we have dedicated our lives to contribute to Indic Renaissance. This is my dream. I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime or not. But thanks to great people like Amish and many other people I know who have suddenly brought Indian knowledge, Indian wisdom in popular way. So film was just the beginning. Like you saw this, we are making a docu-series, a very, very ambitious docu-series on Kashmir and the entire history, heritage, culture of Kashmir. You'll be proud to see next year, 19 January. We have instituted many scholarships with Makhanlal Chaturvedi University in Bhopal, which is about communication, for students to write on Kashmir, do research and publish them as books. And we have given 25 lakh grant just now. We are trying to do a lot of work on Indic knowledge system, just to let the world know that without diversity, without giving freedom to others to believe in, practice any kind of idea, this world will keep talking about humanity, but it will remain inhuman. Just few days ago, one Kashmiri Hindu was targeted, identified, and he was shot. Just few days ago, I think 10 days ago or something like that. And therefore, and it's happening, although just before that, one teacher was identified and she was shot. In the school, they went and picked up, she was the Hindu teacher, so they picked up and killed her. This proves that this is the longest continuous genocide in the history of the world. Let us not create hierarchy system of genocides. Let's not create hierarchy of pain. Wherever I go, a lot of people say, oh, but it cannot be a Holocaust because so many millions died in a Holocaust and here only few thousand died. We have to change this thinking. Let's not convert deaths into religions and numbers, because that is the best, that is a very smart tactic of communists. They do it all the times. They try to rate everything. Your death is better than my death, or your death is more painful than my death. Let's not do that. Let's try and look at everybody's pain as pain, not your pain and my pain. Every tear has the same pain. And that's why let's make an effort to listen to these persecuted, hurt people. Let's forget the political boundaries, let's forget the religious boundaries, and just acknowledge, give them safe space. Already 32 years is a long traumatic period. Now when the process of healing has begun, give them safe spaces to heal at least, to let them cry. I'm not saying give them a shoulder or give them a hug. Don't do that. But let them do what they want to do. Don't stop that. And I'm very, very sad to say this, that a lot of Western media is not giving them safe space. Today only New York Times has done a hit job. It sounds as if they have done a hit job against me or the Prime Minister of India, but do they realize what's the collateral damage? The already damaged people. Because you make them believe that you don't care. There's no place for damaged people. Kashmiri people, whether Hindus or Muslims, both are equally hurt and damaged people. Let's acknowledge that. Let that child, that 5-year-old girl, let's give her education, like that young boy was saying in the documentary. Give her a paper and pen and let her understand that everybody does not have to recite namaz to be a good human being. Thank you. Thank you very much.